Here on CBS Sports HQ, we're only going into week 5 of college football, and there are already 3 head coaching vacancies.
Why does this look like a graveyard?
I know, it's really sad. Virginia Tech was the first to do it, firing Brent Pry, then UCLA. Moving on from Deshaun Foster, and then most recently Oklahoma State, firing longtime head coach Mike Gundy. So which of these vacancies is the most desirable? And we're also going to push the story forward and talk about coaches who could be on the hot seat. So let's welcome in our college football analyst, Richard Johnson. Richard, before we get to the hot seat conversation, as we like to do, we kind of want you to rank the current openings here. So Virginia Tech, UCLA, Oklahoma State. Walk us through, we can go 3 to 1, how you see these.
Yeah, let's go 3 to 1. I'll go UCLA as my 3. It's a situation where there's not a ton of massive donors. Obviously, you have basketball concerns with UCLA taking some of the funding, and there are just some open questions about the situation there. There's a facilities concern, 2 80-yard practice fields, for instance. It's things like that. You're obviously in the Big Ten, which is a league which has absolute whales in college football where you are not. And UCLA just really hasn't had a ton of sustained success in the last 30 years. So I put UCLA 3rd. I put Oklahoma State 2nd. I think Oklahoma State is certainly at an inflection point. Currently right now, they've got to figure out what they want to be in this next era of college football. Mike Gundy was fiercely resistant to the NIL era. He said that across the 3 seasons before this season, they had $7 million total committed to their roster. That's not each year, that's over 3 years. And then I'm going to take Virginia Tech as number 1, but with a caveat, if and only if they get their funding concerns taken care of. On Tuesday, September 30th, there will be a board vote to potentially greenlight $50 million per year over the next 4 years to the athletic operating budget. If they can get that money in, then I'm in on Virginia Tech. If they can't, then I think it's number 3. Virginia Tech falls to number 3 with UCLA.
All right, so Virginia Tech there at number 1, but there is a giant asterisk around it in terms of funding, because if not, it goes to tied for 3rd. So Richard, kind of walk us through each position and maybe some candidates that are floating around that you think could be right for the job. I know it's hard to say right now, as we're just 3 weeks in, but who are some candidates that you think could be a fit for these openings?
Early. I have to use that word with all of these jobs. A couple of these, Virginia Tech and UCLA, have not even really finalized who's going to be on the hiring committees for these jobs. And that's important because both of those athletic directors are in something of a hot water. With Virginia Tech, I think Virginia Tech is a really interesting spot to start with here. With Virginia Tech, they have to rejigger the entire athletic department. Now, they're going to, everybody that I talk to about the Virginia Tech job uses the word outdated when they talk about the Hokies. They have to have, like I said, a lot more investment into the athletic department. It is a very open question as to what they will do with the athletic director here, whether Whit Babcock will stick around for the long term. He is going to be assisting this search, not leading it, whereas UCLA's athletic director, Martin Germond, is going to be leading the search. Whit Babcock at Virginia Tech is not. So Virginia Tech may be hiring a CEO of athletics type person as well to head the athletic department, and then what they do at head coach may look like something more like Oklahoma, where you have an empowered GM like Jim Nagy is, and a head coach next to him, something of an NFL model. As far as UCLA is concerned, I think an interesting candidate for them is FSU defensive coordinator Tony White, who is somebody that I understand really wants the job, played at UCLA. But I do think UCLA is going to end up going for an established head coach. Dave Aranda is an option, I think, because Aranda is a guy who grew up there, grew up as a fan there. He's an interesting target there, I think, for their search. There's some other established head coaches that could go there. I think Ed Orgeron may try to get in the mix. I don't know if UCLA would go for that, but Orgeron used to coach at USC. He knows Southern California. I think he's going to try to get in the mix there. And then when we get to Oklahoma State may take a look at Zach Robinson, who's the Falcons offensive coordinator. He's going to be a booster darling for them. You also have a G.J. Kenny, who's the head coach at Texas State, and Eric Morris at North Texas. But again, got to say with all of these, early stages for all 3 of these hires.
Yeah, we got to emphasize the early on that. All right, let's talk about coaches who could be on the hot seat. I'm going to start with one team who can't lose this week because they're on a bye, sitting at 1-3. And they're welcoming Texas, playing Texas coming up. We're talking about Billy Napier, who I did just see a report that he's going to continue the play calling as well for the Florida Gators. So that's really great. But yeah, he's on the hot seat, Richard.
Yeah, Billy Napier's seat is turned up to 11, so to speak, with the start that Florida has had. You know, I think some of it is you kind of let the season play out. Just my personal opinion on mid-season firings, I'm sort of like, you're just kind of satiate a fan base that's just not very happy. You know, as soon as you fire any head coach, a 30-day transfer portal window opens for all your players. That is a concern, especially if you've got a roster that is like Florida's, that has significantly good players on it. You don't want players to just shut it down and go in the portal or something like that. So I understand that Florida fans may want that job to open right now, but that doesn't mean it has to for the next few weeks. So yeah, Billy Napier's on the hot seat. I mean, we all know it. The other one that I think is very interesting within the SEC is Arkansas and what's going to happen with Sam Pittman here. Sam Pittman going into the season, going into last season, to be honest with you, was in industry circles was a massive candidate to retire or step aside from that job. So what will Arkansas do right now? Obviously, they had the embarrassing loss to Memphis, fumbling where it looked like they were going to go down and win that game. A win became a loss. They're going to play Notre Dame in a game that could honestly have quite a bit of points this weekend, and then they have a bye week, one of 2 bye weeks this season that a lot of college football teams have. So a bye week is a typical date that you could fire a coach, because then you have 2 weeks for the interim to kind of get settled in. Interim head coach potentially Bobby Petrino at Arkansas. So Bobby Petrino may get a second run as head coach at Arkansas, at least for a few weeks, if Sam Pittman is fired or retires or however it is that they term it.
And Richard, I do think that's a good point. Going back to Florida, of course, like fan bases that have high expectations, you know, get the coach out of here. That's what they're saying. But there is a lot of talent on that roster. Of course, DJ Lagway, LJ McCray, just name a few. And you don't want those guys to then hop in the portal and then be gone for good. If we're looking at these teams, right, or these jobs, excuse me, they're SEC teams, right? So where does Arkansas and Florida kind of rank among the current openings if it does get to that place?
Well, I think Florida is near the top of jobs in college football. You are going to have to re-recruit that roster, obviously. Again, once Billy Napier, if Billy Napier is fired, once that happens, the portal opens, and there's a 30-day window as far as that's concerned, where any player could hop in the portal potentially. There are going to be a lot of people that are going to try to pick Florida's rosters clean. That's just how it works, especially when you have the talent on the roster that Florida has. But Florida does have an athletic director position where Scott Strickland just got extended for a few years, so it seems pretty settled there. Arkansas is an SEC job, so it's going to be one that is very coveted. But their own athletic director said just the other day, did Hunter Yurachek, and I'm paraphrasing here, that they need to up their resources as far as trying to be able to compete for SEC championships and national championships. So I think Arkansas is in a different funding category, in a different funding situation than Florida if we're weighing those 2 jobs together.
Richard, we certainly appreciate it chatting with us about the coaching carousel in college football, as we still have a whole lot of football left to play. And a reminder, you can hear Richard, by the way, on our College Football Insider show, always breaking down the biggest headlines happening in college football. You can watch right now by scanning that QR code on your screen.